Had to show you guys this real quick because I didn't know it was going to be a thing. He actually has a Missa Pandaria, like Chinese serpent, as a pet. Now, how fucking cool is that? Just saying. I think it's pretty cool. Unfortunately, I'm sure it's tied to BM, which is not my choice of specs, but anyway, I just had to show that. That looks awesome. Okay, I wanted to go through some of the disc stuff. We're not getting a whole lot of changes, but some cool stuff for sure that I'm excited about. So I figured I'd show it real quick. Core kit's the same, really. Hopefully Feathers will make a comeback as a playstyle, because extra mobility, I always loved that. Yeah, the last row is really the biggest change, I guess. Light's Caress, so when you drop a barrier, you're going to get healed. Everyone in here is going to get healed for X amount, and then when it expires, it's going to heal again for that same amount. So that's something. But this whole row in general is pretty lackluster in my opinion. Evangelism is complete garbage. Complete garbage. I can't believe that's still here. Luminous Barrier might, even though I've never been a fan, it might actually be a thing. Just because Light's Caress isn't that great. Not to mention the fact that it requires, group coordination to actually make use of that. Whereas this just, puts a shield on all allies wherever they are, right? So that might be the go-to. We'll see. Especially for raids, but anyway, a big change over here. As you can see, if you look through all this, there's no premonition, right? So you get a little bit worried, but when you go to your core kit here, you can see Shadow Word Death is back. So you still have premonition to break CC, which is great. The old school Shadow Word Death. You're getting some of your Shadow kit back with Mind Blast, Shadow Word Death, and Mind Seer. Desperate Prayer also, by the way, is not just for disc. It's going to be for Shadow as well, so that's a thing. Extra healing, so that's always good. Yeah, Power Infusion also is really exciting that this is coming back, because that's always been a fun spell. 2-minute cooldown, 25% haste for 20 seconds. Great. But anyway, so yeah, Shadow Word Death is back, so losing Prem, no big deal. And then on top of that, we're getting a new thing called Thought Steal. And I'm trying to remember if this was there in the past. I think it may have been several years ago. But either way, you can spell steal, and then they can't cast whatever spell you steal for 20 seconds. So, stealing a poly or a cyclone, or a chaos bolt, or, something big like that, that's pretty huge, and that could be really fun. It's on a 1.5 minute cooldown, but with it having the kind of power it does, I think that's fine. So yeah, I wanted to show that, especially, like, that's, to me, is the biggest change, because disc was already pretty fun. So maintaining Shadow Word Death as a thing, plus getting Thought Steal, that's going to be a lot of fun, I think. Yeah, so Druid changes. Kind of back to several years ago for Resto Druid, with a few minor tweaks. Nourish is back, gains triple mastery from triple bonus from your mastery. Other than that, this row is still the same. What's kind of weird is you still get the Nourish talent in PvP, that it's the same as it is on live. It'll put up hots one by one on your target until they have all hots, and then it'll crit. But just as a talent in PvE, yeah, you get a very mana efficient heal with triple mastery bonus. So pretty nice. Definitely, you don't have to, spam regrowth necessarily, depending on how fast incoming damage is. These are all the same. Affinity's got a nice buff in that they're getting CC tied to them. So balance affinity, you'll get Typhoon. Feral, you'll get Maim. Guardian, you'll get Incapacitating Roar. And Resto affinity, you can't see because I'm Resto, but it gains Ursul's Vortex. So very, very cool changes with this. And then that's enhanced by Heart of the Wild making a comeback. 5-minute cooldown. You're empowered for 45 seconds. So for Feral, it's going to give you 30% more damage. And the same functionality as Feral, where when you crit, you generate an extra combo point. Guardian Affinity is going to give 20% stam, multiple uses of Iron Fur or stacks. So you'll get Iron Fur back baseline here, but it'll only stack to 1, right? But with Heart of the Wild up, yeah, you can get as many stacks as you want as long as you have the rage for it. And then you also gain 2 charges of Frenzied Regen, whereas with Guardian Affinity, you just have the baseline 1. So, really nice. And then Balance Affinity, you can see here, increases your balance abilities by 30%, and Star Surge becomes instant. So very, very cool there, on top of the other effects. This is back. Also, I should mention the Astral Influence is back to 5 yards instead of just 3 like it is in BFA. So that's an added bonus. So Balance Affinity, you might start seeing that more for Resto Druids, especially in PvP. With that being back to 5 yards, they can clone from further away. And Cyclone is back as a baseline spell anyway. So yeah, you can Cyclone in PvE again, and you'll have a bigger range if you go with Balance Affinity. So very, very cool there. These are all the same. What they did here, and this is kind of unfortunate. I kind of see why they did it, but at the same time, I'm not a huge fan. They removed the improved Iron Bark right here and brought Spring Blossoms from there to here, and then added back in Overgrowth like it used to be. So, and I can see why they did that, because we're not going to have Conflict and Strife to get Overgrowth in PvE. So they wanted that option to be there in PvE, right? And I think that's why they did that. They may have felt that Iron Bark was a little too strong as well, so they removed that talent. And I'll just show you here real quick. You can see there's a 1.5 minute cooldown on it now, which is a big nerf. And by default, it's just a 20% wall, and that's it. Now, once you hit, is it 56? Yeah, 56. Then they add back in the hot portion of it, where it increases your hots by 20%. So at least that's still there, but yeah, big nerf on the cooldown. And, you don't get the extra cooldown reduction from improved Iron Bark here. But, you get Overgrowth back, so pretty cool. And hopefully, this nerf won't be too bad, because maybe they'll tweak our hots to be more powerful like they were several years ago, to where you rely even more on just hots and not as much casting. So maybe they're balancing around that fact. It's hard to say without testing in-game content, plus you also get a very mana efficient casted heal here. So yeah, we'll see how it all works out. I'm not the biggest fan, but I'm not gonna complain too much either, because Resto Druid has always been really good. It's just a matter of whether or not you really like the playstyle. And if I'm honest, I didn't really like the playstyle in BFA either. I would love to see Genesis come back. That's, to me, the coolest Druid spell that's probably ever existed, because it gave you the option to burst heal, or, you know, at the cost of a lot of mana, or just, you know, keep healing as usual. You had that flexibility to do that with Genesis, and I really wish that would make a comeback. Maybe someday it will, or maybe it will be tied to a legendary in Shadowlands. You know, that would be awesome. I would love that, but I haven't checked into the legendaries and stuff too much yet, so hard to say there. Last row here, still the same. See, did we go through the PvP talents? We showed you that Nourish is a thing. See if this is still the same. Yeah, that's pretty much the same too. So all this is pretty much unchanged. Baseline, Barkskin is back baseline now. I know you already had it as Boomy and Resto, but now you get it back as Feral. You know, and when I switch to Feral, you can see that. But that is huge because in PvP, they've had a hard time surviving during stuns. You have to really rely on your teammates, especially your healer, in BFA, because you only had 2 charges of survival instincts. But now you get that back, even though it's only 20%. Like, being able to cast that during stuns and whatnot is pretty huge. So I'm glad that's back baseline. I'm glad Cyclone's back baseline. Looking here. Showed you Iron for Stampeding Roar being back to baseline is really cool, because, you know, Feral and Guardian have had it, but now it's back to the way it was several years ago, where all specs are going to get it back baseline. So more group utility, no matter what spec you are, always a good thing. And the rest of it is pretty much the same. Look at Resto here, and there's not a whole lot changed. I showed you the Iron Bark cooldown. But one of the biggest changes in this regard is Swiftmend is now back to consuming your Rejuve, or Regrowth, or Wild Growth. I'm not a fan of this. I never liked it to begin with, but it's not the worst thing in the world. I mean, it's still a very powerful heal, and now it's on a 15-second cooldown. So that's a little bit of a saving grace there, is the cooldown is low, even though it consumes, you know, your hot. So, not bad. But this whole model is just not my favorite. But yeah, I'm sure plenty of people will still love it. Still have Ursols and Mastery and Ysera's Gift are all the same. Innervate has a slight tweak to it, where if you cast it on, well, when you get to 52, you cast it on another healer, then you get 50% of that bonus, which is, I think, how it was back in the day. So that's really cool. And then we get NS back. So instant regrowth, nourish, rebirth, entangling roots, and heals for an additional 100%. So definitely powerful. I'm glad that's back. And there's a lot of flexibility with this ability, which is what I loved about it. You know, you can use it offensively, defensively, whatever. Very, very cool. So those are the Resto changes. And then I'll show Feral, which, you know, isn't getting tweaked too much, to be honest. But you know, Shadowlands is largely about baseline stuff that's coming back from the past. So same stuff. I showed you the affinities, great change, Heart of the Wild. great. Savage Roar, I still don't think is going to make a comeback. 25 energy, and increases your damage by 15% and your energy regen. It looks good on paper, but it just hasn't worked out for quite a while now. In this incantation of it anyway, like when it was different, it was really good, but I don't know. We'll see. Purely conjecture at this point. And the rest of this is all the same. And all the PvP talents are the same as well. Showed you the baseline stuff. Bark Skin being back for Feral is huge. Survival Instincts, because we're getting Bark Skin back, is down to 1 charge. So 3-minute cooldown, 150% wall. Which is fine with me. Just getting Bark Skin back, I feel more than makes up for that. So I like it. Yeah, and everything else is the same. So no huge changes there, to be honest. Playstyle wise, it's mostly going to be the same. But, Covenant abilities and legendaries could really spice it up and throw a wrench into it all. And hopefully we'll get some rotational stuff, because that would be fun. But we'll see. So yeah, that's the Druid stuff I was going to look at. Not going to show Guardian because I just really don't care. Same with Boomy. There are changes for Boomy, but just check out another video from somebody and you'll see the Eclipse is back and all that. You'll see those changes. So yeah, hope you enjoyed it, and I'll see you in the next one.